Hey guys, how you doing today? Just sitting out here on this deck here. Beautiful day today. Having a nice day off, a good Saturday. Um, just finished reading a fairly long, substantial article um, called "The Truth About the Alt-Right: A Destruction by Facts and Logic," published in medium.com, under the pseudonym MK Ultra Woke. I believe all that information is accurate. If you have an hour, perhaps, maybe two. Oh, see, it's a party out here. If you have an hour, maybe two, and you want to read an article that goes through using very well-sourced materials, using incredibly poignant and sharp journalistic, just a sharp journalistic eye, I highly advise taking a look at this article. It asks the question, where does the alt-right come from? How does the alt-right exist in the society at all? Who is funding it? Who is supporting it? Who is behind the alt-right? And that's a really interesting question, because the alt-right seem to just come out of nowhere, and they just seem to exist in the society. And America and Canada have always had their fair share of fascist movements, certainly, like the Ku Klux Klan, for example. But the alt-right is something new. It's come from the internet. And that's really where I was at when I approached this article. Yeah, it's just sort of like the internet. And the internet came together, and like-minded individuals found one another on the internet and created these sort of internet groups. And fostered these fascist ideas online. And that perception is accurate, according to this article. But the author goes into great detail and goes into great pains to show, in a very painstaking, deliberate manner, that part of the backing of these alt-right groups comes from the CIA and other intelligence groups, including the British Secret Service and the British equivalent of the CIA. And when I started to read that, the author reveals that there were leaks that showed that many of the people who are posting on these websites come out of Fort Elgin Air Force Base, which has essentially been turned into an internet troll farm. That the idea is that you have trained professionals, trained intelligence operatives, fostering fascist ideas online. Now, why would they do this? That's the big question, right? Because this does delve us into a realm that I suspect many people who see this will just simply dismiss, as they do, as conspiracy theory, even though the CIA has been caught in many what has been called conspiracy theories, and they've been caught in many plots and conspiracies in order to overthrow democratically elected governments, in order to, use soldiers as guinea pigs for drug trials, in order to do all kinds of evil things. Not even ethically questionable, just black and white evil. And the goal of the CIA and all of these intelligence operations, of course, the reason why they were created was to protect capital. That's the reason they were created. And they're not secret about that, right? They're pretty open about that. You can, in fact, go listen to Mike Baker, who is a CIA agent, on Joe Rogan's podcast. And you can listen to him talk about this very thing. And of course, the justification that gets used is that we're the good guys. That's the justification that all fascists use to defend their abhorrent actions, is that we're the good guys. And so when we do something that is evil, even if it's objectively evil, even if we look at other people doing it and call it evil, but when we do it, it's fine, because we're the good guys. And that kind of reasoning, and you can hear Mike Baker say this, like, this is not a secret. And you can listen to him talk about how the CIA exists to defend American capitalism. That's what it's there to do. And so the question then becomes, well, what are the depths that the CIA and these intelligence operations are willing to go to defend capitalism? Especially as capitalism steadily reveals itself to be an indefensible system, right? As a society begins to realize that this system is not only enslaving them, it's impoverishing them, and then ultimately it's going to destroy them. That's how the system is designed. Oh, you guys gotta check this out. There's a little squirrel. Little squirrel's just coming up here. Ooh, don't know if you can see him. He's super cute. Oh yeah, I need to start getting some peanuts or something, man. I wouldn't mind feeding these squirrels. Although, you gotta be careful with that, because you think they're just gonna come up and nibble on the thing. Apparently they get quite demanding. Eventually start insisting that you have to do this, and they start stamping their feet a little bit, which can be a bit of a problem. So best not to feed the squirrels. It is completely within the realm of believability for me to think that the CIA is creating internet troll farms in order to create a political movement that is favorable of capitalism. And it is completely believable to me to believe that if the CIA feels that what it has to do is foster fascist ideals, such as white supremacy, scapegoating of immigrants and minorities, in order to protect American capital, they'll do that. It's completely within the realm of believability. They have the resources to do it. We have the evidence that they are doing it. And so I think it is completely within reason to believe that they are doing it. And that, we know people like Anderson Cooper, for example. We understand, like, he works for the CIA, right? We understand that the CIA is well entrenched in the corporate media system. And so it makes sense that as that system begins to collapse and fail, as people begin to lose trust in it, they will turn to alternative sources, things like Breitbart, right? These sort of far-right publications. But it turns out that they are also in cahoots with the CIA. And the purpose of this is just very simple, right? To protect American capital. That capitalism and the capitalists will do anything. I call them sociopaths. That is accurate. Because they will do anything to protect their capital and their assets. They will murder anyone. They will persecute anyone. They will prosecute anyone. They will do anything to anyone in order to ensure that their property is maintained and that the system is maintained. And there is no lengths, there is no end to this. We've seen what the end game looks like for this kind of a thing. And now we're hearing stories coming out of Portland where unmarked vehicles are driving up to protesters and unlabeled, unmarked men are jumping out of these unmarked vehicles, grabbing protesters, throwing them into the vans, and then driving off to undisclosed locations and essentially disappearing these people. It's not very difficult to believe that that's going to become a more widespread, that it's just beginning in Portland as an experiment, and that will spread and continue. And what is so disheartening in the American conversation is that Joe Biden created the legislation that allows that to happen, and Donald Trump is just using it. And the idea that Joe Biden will be elected and then overturn the legislation he passed specifically to be able to do the thing that they're currently doing is a joke. That's why I continuously say, like, it actually might be better for America if Donald Trump gets another term, because it means that they can't bullshit themselves. Like, the Obama years were devastatingly bad for America, ultimately, because it allowed Americans to bullshit themselves. It put the left to sleep. When Obama got into office, the left just fell asleep and just said, like, oh, hey, he's a Nobel Peace Prize winner. He's a black American. He has to be this fine, upstanding gentleman. But he, for all intents and purposes, he just continued the project of empire. And some of the legislation that Obama passed could not have been passed by someone like even George W. Bush. Forget about Trump, right? Some of the legislation that Obama got through could not have been passed by a Republican. And so my concern, of course, is that a Joe Biden win would do something very similar. That it would put the left to sleep. That the left would cease to be critical of power, and they would cease because, their team is in power, and so they don't need to be critical of power any longer. And that's been devastating through the Obama years. Like, Obama extended fracking, Obama extended the drone war. We shit on George W. Bush for starting 2 wars, and Obama expanded that into 7 wars. So, like, so if Donald Trump wins in this next election, it means that Americans have to confront that. And there's this interesting line that I heard recently, which is, you want to vote for the person you're going to fight against. That you're going to go protest, and you're going to get in the streets, and you're going to cause problems, and you're going to do things, and you're going to rabble-rouse. You have to vote for the politician who you think you would prefer to go up against. And using that litmus test, I would prefer to go up against Donald Trump. Because no one pretends that Donald Trump is good, right? Except for his, delusional cultist followers. The majority of Americans understand what Donald Trump is. And I would rather fight against the thing that we all say is evil, instead of having to continuously convince leftists and liberals, especially liberals, that Joe Biden is just as bad, and he is just as bad. Donald Trump is just naturally sort of an evil, sociopathic goon, right? But Joe Biden has a record. The system that we're living under is in place partially because of Joe Biden. Joe Biden wrote the crime bill. And America is just so totally fucked. And Canada isn't that far off. We're not that much better. That's why I'm actually organizing a protest to go to Doug Ford's house. Because I have absolutely no respect for people who say that we should leave politicians' houses out of it. That we should not go to their homes. Like, people are going to be, like, it's funny how regular people can be evicted from their homes. Politicians can pass legislation that has disastrous effects on people's lives. But if you dare show up at a politician's house en masse, oh, well, you're the evil one. I have no respect for this position whatsoever. These hack politicians who get into power so that they can serve corporate power and decimate the societies they live in for no benefit whatsoever. They need to be scared. They need to know that their actions have consequences, and that hurting people, you can't just hurt people and have them walk silently away and just kind of grumble. That's not going to fly. And so it's my hope to gather a few hundred people around the concept of a basic income, of course, because Doug Ford is renowned for, he got into power when we were running a basic income pilot, and he was asked explicitly if he would cancel the basic income pilot during the election, and he said no, he would not. And literally the first thing he did was cancel the basic income pilot. It was like literally the first thing he did. And what's so grotesque about that is that it was completely unnecessary. Like, I listened to this really great talk that was given about modern monetary theory, and it really showed like how deficits, like, we get fear-mongered about deficits, right? People scare us about deficits. But she pointed out, I'm completely blanking on her name, unfortunately, but she pointed out that, like, well, a government deficit means that there is a surplus in the in the private sector, right? You actually want to have a deficit, because if you have a deficit as the government, that means that the private sector has a surplus. That a deficit is just the way to to keep track of how this all works. And it's the same thing about government debt, right? People scream their head off about government debt, but, like, government debt is actually treasury bonds, right? And she really pointed out, she said, like, if you said to somebody, if you could wave a magic wand and eliminate government debt, would you do it? Like, all the government debt? And she said, yeah, of course, everybody would say that. Yes, of course. But then she said, okay, but if you said, okay, if you're going to wave a magic wand and you're going to eliminate all U.S. treasuries, would you wave that? And everybody went, no, of course not. And she says, there's this fundamental misunderstanding that people don't understand that government debt is tied to treasuries, and that they are one and the same. And it was a real eye-opener to realize that, like, her whole objective is to eliminate this conversation of how are you going to pay for that, because, like, she pointed to Alan Greenspan, who said outright, of course we can pay for it. We just decide to pay for it. We print the money. We give it to who needs to have it. That's how you pay for things. That's how the government pays for things. That's how the government has always paid for things. And there's this belief that the government operates as a business or as a personal finance sector, and it's just not true. And it's this kind of misinformation that I feel is being used by operatives from the CIA and other intelligence agencies to ensure that people don't understand how the system works. And it's 100% just boils down to they want us to do all the work so that they can go off and do nothing, right? So that they can live like parasites off the side of the society. They just live the life of leisure that they think that they deserve because they were born into it, and everybody else works for them. And that's the system, that's capitalism. And they're going to say any lie that they can possibly say Like, think about this. We could fund a basic income today, no problem. How are you going to pay for that? We just decide to pay for that. We print the money and we distribute it, and there you go. It's done. Oh, okay. Well, what about free education? Yeah, we could do that. Take 2 seconds. Oh, but that doesn't indebt an entire generation of people to you and force them to go work for you, right? So it doesn't happen. Because those people might go off and actually pursue their own interests and pursue something that they want to pursue and create institutions that benefit them, and force you to actually work instead of do nothing, which is what they do. So, yeah, what an odd time. What an odd time. And it makes complete sense to me that there's all these conspiracy, like the coronavirus is caused by 5G, the flat Earth stuff. Like, it makes total sense to me that these conspiracies are cropping up because no one has any faith in anything anymore. No one believes any of these institutions any longer. No one believes anything that anyone says because everything has routinely turned out to be a lie. And the moment that you start believing that an institution is working in your favor, something happens that pulls the rug out from underneath you. And so people are desperate and they're looking for any kind of answer and any kind of thing where they can plant their feet. And any kind of community as well, where they can plant their feet and maybe actually feel like they belong somewhere and feel like something makes sense. Exist in a space where nobody is lying to them, which is hard these days because our entire system is based on lies, from the ground up, without exception. And so it's difficult for people, I think. And I think that people need to get on the streets, and I think they need to start protesting, and I think they need to start insisting that if someone is lying to them, that they are banished from the society. Like, I mean, how is it that Fox News is still allowed to distribute? Like, how is that even possible? All they do is lie. They're professional liars. They've defended in court on several occasions their right to lie to the populace. That it has been presented to the court that here is Fox News lying, and Fox News goes, yes, that's correct, we were lying, and we have the right to do that. I think that means that institution should be burned to the ground. And I think if an institution shows itself to be worthless to the society, it should be eliminated. And I don't think that's a radical idea. I think that's pretty rational, actually. All right, I'm going to go enjoy the rest of my day. I hope you guys are enjoying yours. It's a beautiful Saturday, at least here in Toronto. Good luck out there, guys. Do something that makes you happy. Watch a TV show that you like. Try to laugh. Watch some comedy. Watch some Dave Chappelle, some Louis C.K. Get offended. Just get offended. Get over it. Get offended. It's fine. It's fine. Good luck out there, guys. I love you all. Hope you're doing well.